Good morning, everyone. We'll just give it a couple of minutes for everyone to start logging in. We're just right on 10 o'clock. Now, there's a bit of a delay in the session today. So what I'm speaking to now has happened a couple of seconds ago, about 20 seconds ago. So if anyone has any comments, can you please leave them in the chat, and then I'll get to them once we start, and then I'll circle back. And there might be a bit of a delay in me answering those comments, but I'll certainly get to them as well. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today, and we'll give it a couple more seconds and then we'll get into it. So I'll just give it one more minute and then I'll come back. All right, we'll kick off today. So just so I can make sure I can be heard and be seen. So if anyone's out there, can you just put a quick comment in the chat? Then I can make sure that the sound is coming through. Everyone can hear me, and then we'll get into it. So my name's Gavin. I want to thank you for coming today. This webinar session is about helping you dramatically improve your discovery process. I've learned this through the School of Hard Knocks, and I advise many businesses on how to reframe their discovery process. And it forms the larger part of a sales strategy. Thanks, Surrender. Nice to see you. So we'll get into it. So for everyone who's attending today, I would like to thank you for coming along. I'm on a mission to help businesses, and I believe that businesses should be used for a force of good. And I'd love for you to be part of this as well. So in here, I've got a QR code. If you would like to scan this QR code, it will take you to a page, and I support a number of charities. And if you can make a selection there, then we'll select an impact and we'll make it happen on your behalf to one of those 3 charities that are selected as well. So please take a second to get your phone out, scan that code, and then we'll make sure that we support that charity of your choosing as well. Right, so my objective today in this session is to help you create a repeatable and effective sales process. And it all starts with the discovery, right? For those of you who are on the call today, I would love to know what brought you here. What resonated with you with the topic of the webinar? Are you having challenges in your discovery call? How are your discovery calls going? So if you can put that in the chat, that'd be great. And then we'll come back to that as well. And good morning to you, whoever put that comment. It's only coming up. Oh, Ralph, how are you? So who am I? My name's Gavin. I help founders and startups shave years off their learnings and avoid the countless hours of no sleep by not being able to find clients. I've been selling B2B SaaS since 2015, and many of my clients back in the time had a global no cloud policy. So we really had to figure out ways to circumvent that, and that was to create massive demand in their businesses, right? So I'm on a mission to help startups see the truth behind what is fundamentally required to win clients. And I learned this by selling for an Australian technology company called Redeye, where the contract value that we were selling was above $1.5 million. For at the end of the day, for web pages and mobile apps, it really required a fundamental shift on how sales needs to be approached. And the first part of this is the discovery process. What I learned was the typical processes and methodologies aren't enough without the right strategy. And selling innovation, particularly in B2B technology, is completely different to other industries and requires a different approach. So once I discovered this, I was able to reduce the length of sale for large contracts down by about 75%, and while doing less effort and building stronger relationships, which is critically important for B2B SaaS companies. So let's before we get into the discovery, so let's talk about what actually is an effective sales process. To me, an effective sales process is creating a repeatable conveyor belt of sales. It should aim to create demand for your solution. There's a fundamental truth that needs to exist, and that is demand needs to exist before any sale can occur. But unfortunately, most businesses don't intentionally set out to create demand. It's an unintended byproduct of a sales process, but I believe it should be intentionally created, and that is the way to grow your business, right? A sales process should align with the common buying journey across your ideal client profile and the markets you want to enter. Different tiers of markets are different. Different tiers inside a market are different. Different markets are different. So we have to be aware of that and alter the buying process and the discovery process accordingly. The right sales process or framework will allow you to optimize over time, and that optimizing will help improve efficiency and help improve profitability. It should get easier over time as you add to the framework, and it should help you scale as you grow. So let's talk about the traditional view of discovery, a discovery call or meeting. Like the traditional view is to identify qualified leads. And yes, I don't disagree with that, but it's partially true. If you are selling something of B2B and you're a new startup, or you're a founder leading founder-led sales, you could be a service-based business. Unfortunately, sometimes to get a jump or get a head start on your competitors, you have to go back further into the buying journey to be able to start influence their thinking. And sometimes they're not as qualified when I say they don't have a budget ready to go, because they're not quite at that journey yet. So there is more to it, to a discovery call. I agree that it's about building rapport. You should absolutely look at building rapport with your target clients, particularly if you're a founder-led sales. Your relationships and cementing yourself as a subject matter expert is 100% critical. It's traditionally used to uncover problems and challenges that the buyer needs solving, right? But there is way more to it, and I'll explain that in a second. And it's typically to position your product as an ideal solution. And that's true. But there's way more to it, right? So this is why I believe the current discovery or traditional current discovery framework or perception of it is lacking. It doesn't properly set up for an efficient sales process. Remember, we want to create a conveyor belt of sales, right? And to do that, we need to be able to control the sale. It doesn't position the seller necessarily as a subject matter expert. And what I mean by that is, imagine someone that you're speaking to has a problem that you solve, right? And you're the third business they speak to, and you're following the status quo of a discovery process. By the time they get to you and you're asking them their problems, they've repeated it 3 or 4 times, and there is no way to differentiate yourself or cement yourself as a subject matter expert because you've started off like everybody else. And it asks surface level questions. It asks people about problems. It doesn't necessarily identify the root cause of those issues, right? If someone was to do a discovery process for me, as an example, as a 40-plus-year-old male, and they were to talk to me about, hey, what is your weight loss goals, or what's your problem with your weight loss? And I'm saying, oh, look, I'm about 20 kilos overweight. And they're asking surface level questions there. Well, what's your goals to get to? Well, I want to lose about 20 kilos. They don't often drill right down into what's the root cause of those issues. Where are you in your life? What its other impacts? So it's really about, we want to dive deeper into the problems that you solve inside your client businesses, right? Now, the discovery process is often product centric, right? And that's what we need to change. Right. Now, I want to think about a different path. I want to get you to think about a different path. Now, what we want to do is to create an effective sales strategy that will see you through beyond the discovery process, right? An effective or a 10x discovery process, first and foremost, should aim to add value to your audience. We want to add value to your audience because we want to be different. We want to give before we ask. We want to shine a different light on some of the things that they're thinking to get them to think about them differently. So I'll be interested to those who are listening. What are your current challenges that exist with your current discovery process? Is there anything that is lacking, or is there any challenges that you're having specifically about your current discovery process? And I'll come back to that in a couple of seconds. Right. A discovery process should also demonstrate your subject matter expertise, right? Ralph, we've spoken before, and your international knowledge from the German market, or finding products, innovative products to export or import is essential, right, for you differentiating yourself. So you want to be able to set up a discovery process where you have an opportunity to cement that. If people think of you as a subject matter expert, they're more likely to let you lead them to a better outcome, right? Because you know what you're talking about, opposed to someone who's just taking an order, or someone without any knowledge working in a business, right? A great discovery process should find alignment with your audience. You want to be able to make sure you're looking at the problems the same perspective as your audience, right? And you also want to be able to focus on outcomes. Your solution that you're selling in your business, whether you're a founder or a salesperson, offers a certain outcome to the audience, to your buyer. So you want to focus on the outcomes and not the features and benefits of your platform. Sorry, I'm just listening to you. So can everyone else hear me? Or is it just making sure? I'll just pause there for a second. How's that, Ralph? Is that better? I'll just pause that for 1 second and okay, Surrender, you can hear me. Great. All right, so we also want to focus on the outcomes, the real outcomes. It's okay, Ralph, it's fine. So we want to focus on the outcomes. Your solution offers a certain set of outcomes to your intended audience, right? And we want to make sure we frame the message for the intended audience, because we need to create demand inside the buyer's organization, and because demand needs to create the sale. And you want to give you better control at closing sales. And it all starts with a discovery, right? Instead of having hope as a strategy, we want to be able to lead them to a sales conclusion. And we'll get into that in a second. Thanks, Dale. And then thanks, Surrender. Right. So this is a method that I've used to help simplify and make the B2B sales process more forward. It's called the 4-8 method. Now, the 4-8 method is a simple 4-step framework that all B2B sales should go through. And it's about positioning the industry problem. It's about positioning you as a subject matter expert, and it will help differentiate you from others. Now, the main intention of this is to add value to your audience. Now, what we want to do by adding value, I want to be clear on that. It's about helping them see a problem from a different perspective, not necessarily the problem, because the problem is often the symptom. Most people will try and treat the symptom and not the root cause. And if we can show the root cause, you would demonstrate how you were going to show fundamental, meaningful change in a buyer's organization. And that will focus on the outcome for them. It will also prove your value. Most businesses, there is a lot of talk around at the moment with ROI fatigue, where a lot of companies are saying, hey, we will reduce your whatever they solve by 60, 70, 80%, right? But they don't have any process in their business to actually demonstrate that, to take client-specific data and then show them how they'll get demonstratable outcomes. But the 4-8 method will help you do that. And it all starts with creating an anchoring point, which will demonstrate and maximize your value from. And will also help lead your client through the sale. Right. So the 4-8 method comprises of 4 stages, and it's really the discovery process that will cover the first 2. We want to articulate, first and foremost, we want to educate the market, and then we want to articulate your solution, right? And then the later stages is demonstrate how you actually provide that, and then we quantitate where we actually want to prove the ROI out in certain drivers. These last 2 we're not covering today, but the first 2 we are. Okay, so let's talk about the educate phase, right? First and foremost, one of the biggest things businesses struggle with is recognizing the business process that you impact. Whether it's B2B SaaS, a SaaS business, or a technology business, or a service provider business, there is a fundamental business process that you impact. And understanding what that is critical to create a starting point inside a business, right? Now, you want to focus on the root causes of their problems, right? And that's where being a subject matter expert in the solution that you solve, the solutions that you provide, is critically important, so you can articulate how that looks to your audience, right? Now, you want to lead the client or the buyer to a starting point. Now, there's a great debate here where people will say, when you go into a discovery call, the first thing that a seller does, sits down and says, tell me your problems, tell me what's going on inside your business, right? But that can present a real problem for the seller or a startup or a business, because what we want to do is we want to shape them to a starting point. Now, if we ask the potential client, what their problem is, they could have a different view of the problem, but you want to shape them to a starting point. So if you ask them what the problem is, they could say the problem's up here, but your actual sales process is down here, right? So it's very hard to get them on that process. So you really need to shape them to some kind of model or workflow so you can have a starting point of the sale. It's a little bit subjective, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But you want to be able to demonstrate your subject matter expertise. Now, if you can if you can demonstrate your subject matter expertise, you have a real shot of creating a competitive advantage, right? You want to be known as a leader in this space. You fully understand the context of the problems and the impacts that are having, that are going on inside their business, right? And if you can do that, you can have a shared vision of the real issues inside the business. Now, one of the biggest challenges that come from selling something innovative, like a startup, is a founder who is on a scale of, let's think about a scale of 1 to 10. Let's call a founder or their leadership team as close to the 10 as being an industry expert or fully understanding the problem that exists inside the business. But the market, they're subject matter experts in selling what they're selling. They're not necessarily an expert in what you're selling, right? So what you want to do is have a shared vision of the cause, the real cause of the problem. Because if you have, the biggest challenges come from a misconception or a misalignment of the root cause of these issues. So if someone has a usability problem, you want to make sure that you understand what that usability means in this context. And this is why we need to get to a starting point and educate them on the root causes of the industry. Now, you want to use a starting point to identify their processes and impacts, right? As a subject matter expert, you understand the problems that exist in your client businesses, but what you don't understand is the processes, the internal processes and the impacts that are causing it, how they view the impacts. So this is why in the beginning of a discovery process, I'm a firm believer you don't necessarily ask the client businesses what their problems are. You can say, to demonstrate domain expertise and knowing the size of their business, you could say something like, hey, I'm knowing your type of business, you're probably having these issues inside your business, more or less. Is that sound about right? Okay, but can I show you what I've worked on, which I'll show you in a second. And then what I would like to understand is, what are your current processes that are contributing to that, and how is that impacting your business, right? Because you want to get them to what the problems are in a starting point, so you can build tools later on to create that conveyor belt of sales. I'll just pause there for a second. Does anyone have any questions before we go any further? Just move on to the next slide. Is that making sense so far? Now, what I'll do, I'll just wait for some questions to come through. Now, I want to give you an example of how this looks, right, in real life. I'll use my own example of what an effective sales strategy, how that impacts a business, right? Now, typically when anyone goes into a sale with a vendor, right, the vendor always looks at, like the seller is always looked at as a vendor, and you're always opposing the sale. You know, anyone who has had a sales role always knows that there's this us and you kind of mentality when you walk into a business, right? They're always looking at salespeople from across the table. They have their wall up a little bit about trying to engage. This happens to founders sometimes. So there's always an us and them mentality. Now, because that exists, and even if you spark interest in a potential client, what typically happens is a potential client goes, oh, that's interesting. I'm interested in exploring this. But they go away in their business, and they have these internal processes that they need to go through in order to get approval to buy. Now, one of the biggest challenges that come from a seller is they have a lack of visibility of these internal processes. They don't ask about them, and therefore they can't create tools or processes to help their buyer through the buying journey, right? Now, as a consequence of this, is what happens is there's sales friction that exists inside their business. They have to get approval from their management, or they have to write a business case for approval, or they have to measure the impacts or what they're actually solving inside their business, right? All these things that a potential client or someone that you're speaking to has to go through, sometimes that friction can be way too high, and it's way more than a demand of actually making the change. And if the friction is high and the demand is low, then a sale is likely to not occur, right? Because the squeeze is not worth the juice, so to speak. So as a consequence, that businesses aren't maximizing their competitive advantage. They lack an ability to differentiate themselves, right? They have no ability to influence how they see the problems inside their client organizations. Deals stall. So deals will often stall after a demo or some kind of discovery process, because there isn't enough demand for the client to push through that friction, right? And that means there's a lack of clients, a lack of revenue, and increased customer acquisition costs, because they have to do a lot more effort to get a client through the sale, or they'll do a lot more effort and it will still slowly die after a period of time, right? So this is the consequence, right, of what happens when you have an ineffective sales strategy. So whenever I speak to people about what's going on inside their business. I'm trying to articulate, which is what's going on inside their business, right? And this more or less is true for 85, 90% of businesses that I ever speak with. They have a lack of visibility inside their business, inside their client businesses, so they can't help, right? So what we want to do then is we want to articulate, once we have a starting point of the current industry problems, right? We want to talk about how this presents inside the market. We want to articulate what your solution does. Now, we have to be customer centric here because we want to talk about the business workflow of how that looks inside their organization and then show how we improve it. Now, there's a fundamental principle that we can all rest our sales, our sales efforts on is our clients are going to make a decision in their own best interest. So it makes sense to present their information back to them in their own best interest, in their own form, right? And that is to talk about their business flow or their market. And then we can use a discovery to unpack those processes inside that to give us more ammunition, right? And once you articulate, you've educated the market on the issue, then you can articulate how your solution fixes that. So you want to show how you improve their business. The workflow or the process doesn't change, but you optimize it and cut out the inefficiency and cut out the double handling or lack of visibility, all that kind of stuff. Now you want to focus on eliminating the root causes of the problems, right? And this is where your subject matter expertise comes into it. You've built a business, or your team or your founders have built a business on eliminating these root causes. They're experts in the problems that exist in the industry. Now we want to focus on demonstrating and focus on how you eliminate those root causes, right? This will help you demonstrate your subject matter expertise and create a competitive advantage. Now imagine the scenario I said before. Imagine that you are the third person, a company has a problem, right? They want a new CRM, a sales CRM as an example. They've gone to HubSpot and they've gone to Salesforce or whoever else. And the person said, what do you need a CRM for? Okay, what are you storing here? All that kind of stuff, basic CRM stuff. But imagine you're the third person that comes in and says, look, I would love to know how you take your clients through your sales process and understand where those blockages are and really articulate the real issue when it comes to managing clients through their sales process first and diagnosing that, showing them an industry challenge that exists, and then walking them through, showing you how to aiming to educate them on the root issues that exist inside a business, and then go into articulating a solution. It's a far more powerful position to be in to create a competitive advantage and 10x your discovery process. Right? You want to show them how you'll get them there, right? A sale is a journey, a starting point, which is the current industry challenge or the industry problem or the way their business workflow is going. And you want to show them how you fix it. That's the destination. That's what's going on inside your business. That's how I'll fix it. And that's what you want to get to. Now, you also want to remove the complexity of solving their problems, right? Some of you on this call today probably has really complex solution. So you want to be able to simplify that in a easy to follow way. If it gets too complex, people will disengage, right? They will say it's too busy, I don't understand it, and they will withdraw from the sales process. So you want to remove the complexity from your discovery process so it's easy for them to follow. And it has to be customer centric. There's a couple of principles that I founded my business on, and it's actually customer centricity is one of the prime ones. No one can sell anything until a client decides to buy, until a customer decides to buy. So we have to focus everything on helping the customer. Great customer service, helping them understand their current processes inside their business so they can make an informed decision to change. And the first step of this is articulating how you'll actually help their business. So we'll go back to this stage again. So we talked about before, we'll go back of an ineffective sales strategy, right? Then let's talk about what an effective sales strategy looks like. So if you position the subject yourself as a subject matter expertise, and you can articulate what the industry challenge is, and you can demonstrate that you're an expert in this space, the potential client and yourself are looking at a shared vision of the problem that exists inside their business, right? And because you're looking at the same problem, you've essentially crossed the table and not being treated as a vendor. You're treated as a true possible solution to their problems inside their business, right? And it's actually, you feel a shift in the dynamic. It's how to create a strong partnership approach, how to build strong relationships, how to invoke the law of reciprocity, because you're aiming to help them first and guide them on making the best decision, which ultimately is your product or solution, right? So if you can do that, what you want to do is you want to be able to guide them on their journey. So if you know the journey on how they will get to be able to purchase you or be able to make an informed decision, whatever that is for the markets that you enter, it could be a complex business case. It could be a procurement process where they need to go out to tender and ask for a set of system requirements. It all depends on your business, but and how they justify their ROI. What are their drivers inside their business? But if you know what they are, then you can create tools and workshops along their journey to have influence and create demand. And position you as a subject matter expert, right? You want to be able to influence their thinking. We have moved from the information age. We can no longer give information. There's too much information online. Our buyers are too sophisticated. What we have to do is be able to influence their thinking and help them on their journey, right? Now, this will help you increase demand. It will help you win more clients. It will shorten sales cycles, grow revenue, and build stronger relationships. Now, the consequence of this is if you know their journey and you can develop tools and processes along the way to remove the friction, you will simultaneously move the sales friction, which is a pain, while increasing demand or a strong need for change in their business. And if you can do that, the likelihood of a sale is greater than it was before because demand far outweighs the friction, right? And you're removing hope as a strategy. You have far more control of your sales process because you've set up your discovery call in a way to position yourself as a subject matter expertise, and you're going to show them a path on how to genuinely solve this in their business. Now, this is a case study from a client, and I'm going to show you how this works in real time. So a client of mine called Fly Freely, they actually manage drone operations for water utilities and power utilities. So basically what we've done here is show me the starting point of an industry or a water utility when they're planning a drone operation. So basically what they do is there could be up to 5 people involved inside a business, and what they're required to do is log into different external sources and then transfer that data onto either pen and paper, into SharePoint, or via email or an LMS into an internal system. So all these arrows are actually manual effort, right? Now because this is a very manual process, it is prone to fines and crashes. There's a lot of risks inside this process. So there's 16 different internal, external websites, 10 different apps and websites as well. So the consequence of this process is it's extremely time consuming, right? And it's a duplication of effort, it's prone to mistakes, and it's virtually impossible to maintain. So a starting point in their discovery process is they articulate this as saying, hey, this is the typical process inside a business when they need to plan a mission. Does that sound about right for you? And more often than not, they're going, yeah, that's exactly more or less, that's right. So, okay, can I ask you some processes around how many people are in your business? Do you have a planner and approver? Do you use those internal apps, or do you have a software at the moment? And they start narrowing down those internal processes and what the impact is. Then what they do from there is they talk about how they eliminate that inefficiency and how they integrate a lot of these different external systems, right? And so they significantly reduce the paperwork, they gain visibility, they virtually eliminate risks, and they focus on delivering the client can focus on delivering value for their customers, and it'll allow them to grow and scale over time with confidence without adding in risk or extra headcount to account for that manual effort, right? So during the discovery process, what they do is they start with the previous slide and they go, that's how we help. Now, what I want to do is actually ask you some questions about that. And then if you're interested, I'll show you how we could actually help you get to a decision whether you should proceed or not through some ROI workshops and how they demo their platform, which is a topic for another day. So that is a way that they use their discovery to set up the sale and lead the client and potentially lead the client to a better outcome. Now, how to 10x your discovery process is, it's really, first and foremost, it's about being proactive. It's about setting up the sale and what's your hypothesis on the business flow that you impact, and making sure you're customer centric. So testing that model, not making your business the center of that discussion. It has to be the client, right? The client will act in their own best interest. So we have to frame it for the client, right? Now, you want to create a business process workflow of the industry problems, right? And if they're part of that industry, more than likely they'll identify with those problems. If not, then you amend it to make sure it fits with theirs, right? Now, you ask the questions to uncover the buyer's processes and impacts that align with the workflow model, right? So you have to get aligned of the root cause of their problems and not the symptoms. If you're treating the symptom, you're not actually going to treat the root cause, and those symptoms will often persist, right? And show them the journey to take them on to solve their problems. So with Fly Freely, what they do is they say, hey, we recommend this journey to go on if you're serious about solving this within your business or looking at us holistically or properly, right? And we lay the path out so the client just knows, hey, we need to go to this step. We're at this step now. And then they're leading them more efficiently to a buying conclusion, which is a sale at the end of the day. And then we want to guide them like an expert, right? If you let the client lead, then they don't necessarily know how to get to the sale and the conclusion, right? So the sale can be delayed. Now, that's really all for today. Now, I've got a last couple of things. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to help. But if your sales are stalling, the discovery forms part of the larger sales and positioning strategy. And often, if you set up the sale, it's like a game of golf, a round of golf. If you can't win it on the first hole, but you can definitely lose it. So the discovery forms part of a larger sales and positioning strategy of your business. I have a few ways to help, but if you want to have a strategy call about your situation, by all means, I will put this in the chat here. Or if you've registered for me to make an impact on your behalf, I can send you a Calendly link, and then we can have a strategy call about what's going inside your business. I'll try and diagnose some low-hanging fruit and help you unblock some of those blockages that might be going on. Otherwise, you can send me a message on LinkedIn here, and then we can set up a time to chat as well. Now, if anyone has any questions, please let me know, and we'll just give it a couple of minutes because of the delay here. And again, please register if you want to register for the impact. I will make sure that you that we make a donation on your behalf so we can support some great charities around the world and make a real, be a force for good. So just give it a couple of minutes. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. All right. Well, I might sign off if no one else has any questions. All right. Have a great day, and thanks for attending. See you again.